Welcome guys, so we're going to continue talking, sort of coming off a little bit of the topic now of the feminine. We still, there's an aspect of this in this channel message. So we want to understand about coming out of our story, coming out of the emotional cyclical nature of what we call karma, but really in truth is like a magnetic energy. So when we have an emotion which is generally created with a belief system around an experience we have, it creates a magnetic force field. So we're always going to continue to draw that in, and this is where people call karma. And really, karma is basically your soul trying to get you to wake up to an emotional pattern or belief system that is subconscious or unconscious to you. So this is why people call it karma, but really it is a magnetic process. And we talk a lot about this in alignment modality, and it comes from the Diamond Light teachings, the magnetics, and living a lifetime in the moment and not on the timeline, or what we call a horizontal line of humanity's consciousness, the way we're programmed in, and that means, go to school, you have children, you do a certain job, you retire, and this whole structure that we're put into. And a lot of the times this doesn't give space to be in the moment with the soul energy. So of course everything I've been talking about for the last so many years on this group, for example, is about soul alignment, bringing our consciousness back into the moment, because too many people are now still magnetized into this story. And if you're unconscious of what you call karma, or these magnetics that we're talking about, then you are going to remain a victim. And I've spoken a lot about victim consciousness, and this message that I'm going to talk to you, that's channeled through, we'll speak a little bit about that as well. So it's really about finding the frequency in your own emotional energy, because you cannot sort of, again, this will speak about it, but you can't bring logic into emotion, and a lot of people try to do that because obviously a lot of that shut down in our society, and even as children we're taught to be quiet, suppress our emotions, don't do this, don't do that, and of course what you're doing is you're closing down their emotional body, their expression, and especially for children that can't speak yet, their only ways to yell, to scream, is to use whatever voice they have. But this is really about finding their frequency, and of course we shut that down as adults. Obviously things are changing a bit now because the consciousness is changing with parents, but there's still that level of sort of be quiet, and this is why so many people are in so much trauma now, because they've never been allowed to express that energy correctly or safely as children. And so we're seeing a lot of that come back now. So, the inner child work is very, very important. And a lot of the inner child work, and what I notice is it gets sort of brushed over. It becomes too much of a norm in mainstream therapies as well. And the point is that we believe we need to go and fix something with the mind. We believe we need A, B, and C to fix X, Y, Z. But that's not how energy works now, and that's not how healing energy works anymore. And a healer can never actually heal you. They just provide the space so you heal yourself, because you're the only one that's created your trauma, and no one else can take it away from you until you acknowledge it. So even healing is changing now. And yes, you can go and have Reiki, and you can have cranial sacral and all this to sort of alleviate certain ailments and to assist you. But the underlying issues, the patterns that have been there since ancient days, or for thousands of lifetimes, some people, will never get resolved until you feel it, until it's brought up to the surface and you're made conscious of it. And this is why multi-dimensional, interdimensional healing is very important at the moment, what people call past lives, but they're all really sort of happening at once. So this is why that, and to bring alignment, you have to have a foundation. So the inner child has to be in alignment with you first. Then the soul body can come into alignment with that, and then you open up multidimensionality. So there's a very simple formula for humans now, And this is what Spirit are really trying to impart on people. Because like I said, too many people are caught in the story, in blame, in guilt, and transference of their own emotions, and not owning it for themselves. And why this continues to happen, what happens is you stay locked in that frequency, so you're never able to access anything outside of it. And this is why people go to war, why people argue, why neighbours don't talk to each other for 20 years and they live right next to each other. You know, the whole thing. Okay, so you know, we've all had an aspect of that in our own lives. It's still playing out in other aspects of our lives. So the frequency of our emotions needs to be understood as an intelligence that is beyond the physical. So you have to give space for that, because anything beyond the physical needs space for it to manifest physically. It needs to be acknowledged. So you just need to acknowledge what you're feeling in the moment, and then that will start to let consciousness start to move through you, because the true healing is done by the soul body, or consciousness, or you divine current, whatever you want to call it, life force. So really it's about getting the human mind out of the way, so emotions can transform them. You cannot run away from your emotions. They're very intelligent. You can actually talk to them. Even when I'm doing healing, sometimes I will go in and I will talk to the anger in the person. I have a 15-minute conversation with them sometimes, or through the whole healing, it'll keep talking to me about different aspects, because it's like talking to a normal person. They have their own intelligence. Everyone has this ability. Obviously, a lot of people need a little bit of help at the beginning, but we all, at the end of the day, we're all the same underneath. We all have the same power. So let me read off this message now, and then we'll go from there. So this again was channeled by the Viridian Consciousness a few days ago. So we are sitting on the edge of your planet, and we look upon human consciousness, witnessing an influx of guilt placed on one another. Now, because many on the planet are starting to stir ancient trauma, their egos are getting in the way and playing the guilt game, trying to control what they are feeling by projecting it onto their story, blaming others for their lives and their mistakes. Trying to control the emotional output of said guilt will only create more emotional trauma. The belief in I am alone is coming up to the surface, because many of you feel this but don't articulate it correctly, and it plays out as a victim. And of course, a victim will always try and control other people's emotional responses to support their glorious victimhood. And in truth, emotional energy is what keeps the planet in sync. It is a very powerful force, and when in the wrong hands, can cause havoc to all of those around them. They believe they need to act a certain way in situations, and it's these belief systems that keep you in a gridlock. The mind, without the direct connection to the soul body, cannot handle or even understand the emotions in their entirety. Because firstly, you aren't taught emotion, you are taught logic. And second, emotional energy comes from the feminine aspect of creation. And until the male force on the planet can understand the feminine expression, they cannot understand their own emotions. And until females can understand their own male energy, they will be out of balance too. To express emotional energy in balance, you must have a balanced inner child relationship. Because if your vulnerability, your sensitivity isn't loved and respected, you cannot hope to find emotional equilibrium. Trying to control emotions through logic will only harden the person, because you're not honouring the duality of your experience. The sacred flame you all carry in your hearts is asking you all to take time to process your emotions through feeling, not through logic, not through your story or your circumstances, but rather thank them with gratitude, because they are your story, but not your reality. Your true reality is understanding how you have been playing in a world of illusion, which is now asking you to release it from your minds and honour it for the experience it provided you. For in the next coming years, it will be increasingly hard to stay in illusion by not honouring truth or true reality. We are experiencing a lot of frenetic emotional energy as deep ancient emotional charge is stirring at the cellular level, and it's sending shockwaves out through your galaxy. It's quite a spectacle for observers of your planet. You will soon witness the bees returning, and this is a sign of balance resuming on your planet. On a personal level, it means you are coming into balance. But don't rest on your laurels. There is much depth to your subconscious, and all that needs to transmute will start to surface over the next 18 months. Be the brave, wise warriors you are all known to be off planet, and start to let go of your conditioning and belief systems. They are your only downfall right now. So, a good message. I think the bees is fantastic, because I remember a couple of years ago we were talking about a lot of the bees were disappearing, and that's when a lot of the negativity was starting to stir up, or the shadow, shall we call it, shadow self of humanity was starting to, and it's still going to continue for 18 months. I think this July there's going to be a shift, but you can feel that there's going to be another 18 months or so of all this chaos going on, which will go very quickly anyway. But the main thing is that, like we always say, you just have to get in touch with our emotional energy now, because it is dying to release itself, and a lot of it is very unconscious to a lot of people, and this is why you have to go into your subconscious to see it and give space for it to release itself, by just being also conscious in the moment, especially about the projection and the story and the victimhood, because that unfortunately keeps the planet stuck. It's making it harder for things to move. We're our own worst enemies, as we know. But I feel that a lot of the energies are coming in, and I think there's going to be a lot more, especially from July onwards, there's going to be a lot more energy coming onto the planet that people can access if their intention is there to access it. And there's a lot of the ancient markers, a lot of the old planetary, a lot of stuff was seeded here millions of years ago, and it's starting to activate now through the ley lines, through the ancient markers, the fire markers, what they call it. You've got a lot of the ancient temples that are under the sea, under the ground, that are still conscious. They're starting to open up now. So there's a lot of the ancient sites that are coming back alive, which is very interesting as well, because that's all in that timeline. They knew this was going to come. The Aquarian age is just starting to kick off really now. So these markers get ignited when we're ready. When consciousness hits a certain vibration, they will start to ignite, and then of course that will affect us on the cellular DNA level, and start to bring us into alignment with the prime directive, or what consciousness, universal consciousness, wants for this galaxy. Because it's not just the planet Earth that's moving, the whole solar system is shifting. And as I said before, we're moving, I think we move a couple of 100,000 kilometers a year. The planet moves anyway. So we're never stationary. So we're just moving into a sort of a frequency or vibration that is spinning faster. So the atoms. So this is why the shadow is also starting to come up and be exposed, because the density to hold in a longer vibration means you can hide in the shadow, so you can't hide anymore. So this is on a macro level. So it's our own shadow self, the shadow self of the government, the shadow self of all the nasty stuff that's going on. Then you've got the shadow of a higher dimensional consciousness, the shadow of beings that have been here influencing humanity. That's all getting exposed. So everything's getting exposed, but we also must remember that shadow energy is us. And we cannot deny it. We have to give it love and all the rest of it. So getting rid of these primordial concepts of good and bad, light and dark, and all the rest of it. That needs to all go out the window now. So it's going to be interesting. So I'm looking forward to it. We're going to do some work around July. I believe that they're going to bring some stuff in, so that hopefully there'll be some live activations that we can do for everyone on this group. And we'll go from there. All right, guys, thanks very much. I'll speak to you all soon.